Part One, Chapter 2 of Little Eve Edgarton. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Little Eve Edgarton by Eleanor Hallowell Abbott. Part One, Chapter 2. When Barton recovered the severed parts of his consciousness again and tried to pull them together, he found that the present was strangely missing. The past and the future, however, were perfectly plain to him. He was a young stockbroker. He remembered that quite distinctly. And just as soon as the immediate dizzy mystery had been cleared up he would, of course, be a young stockbroker again. But between this snug conviction as to the past, this smug assurance as to the future, his mind lay tugging and shivering like a man under a split blanket. Where in creation was the present? Alternately he tried to yank both past and future across the chilly interim. There was a green and white piazza corner, vaguely his memory reminded him. Never again. Some latent determination leapt to mock him. And there had been some sort of an argument with a drollish old man concerning all homely girls in general, and one very specially homely little girl in particular. And the very specially homely little girl in particular had turned out to be the old man's daughter. Never again, his original impulse hastened to reassure him. And there had been a horseback ride with the girl. Oh, yes, out of some strained sense of parental humor, there had been a forced horseback ride. And the weather had been hot and black and then suddenly very yellow. 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 Dizzily the world began to whir through his senses, a prism of light, a fume of sulphur. Yellow. Yellow. What was yellow? What was anything? What was anything? Yes, that was just it. What was anything? Whimperingly like a dream-dazed dog, the soul of him began to shiver with fear. O ye gods! If returning consciousness would only manifest itself first by somewhat indisputable proof of a still undisintegrated body, some crisp, reassuring method of outlining one's corporeal edges, some sensory roll call, as it were, of head, hands, feet, sides. But out of oblivion, out of space abysmal, out of sensory annihilation, to come vaporing back, 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 headless, armless, legless, trunkless, conscious only of consciousness, uncertain yet whether the full awakening prove itself this world or the next, as sacred of heaven as of hell, as then very, very slowly, with no realization of eyelids, with no realization of lifting his eyelids, Barton began to see things, and he thought he was lying on the soft outer edges of a gigantic black pansy, staring blankly through its glowing golden center into the droll, sketchy little face of the pansy. And then suddenly, with a jerk that seemed almost to crack his spine, he sensed that the blackness wasn't a pansy at all, but just a round, earthy sort of blackness in which he himself lay mysteriously prone. And he heard the wind still roaring furiously away off somewhere, and he heard the rain still drenching and sousing away off somewhere. But no wind seemed to be tugging directly at him, and no rain seemed to be splashing directly on him. And instead of the cavernous golden crater of a supernatural pansy, there was just a perfectly tame yellow farm lantern balanced adroitly on a low stone in the middle of the mysterious round blackness. And in the sallow glow of that pleasant lantern light, little Eve Edgarton sat cross-legged On the ground, with a great pulpy clutter of rain-soaked magazines spread out all around her like a giant's pack of cards, and diagonally across her breast, from shoulder to waistline, her little gray flannel shirt hung gashed into innumerable ribbons. To Barton's blinking eyes she looked exceedingly strange and untidy. But nothing seemed to concern little Eve Edgarton except that spreading circle of half-drowned paper. "For heaven's sake, what are you mumbled Barton. Out from her flickering aura of yellow lantern light little Eve Edgarton peered forth quizzically into Barton's darkness. "Why, I'm trying to save my poor dear books," she drawled. "What?" struggled Barton. The word dragged on his tongue like a weight of lead. "What?" he persisted desperately. "Where, for heaven's sake, what's the matter with us?" Solicitously little Eve Edgarton lifted a soggy magazine page to the lantern's warm, curving cheek. "Why, we're in my cave," she confided. "In my very own cave, you know, that I was headed for all the time. We got sort of struck by lightning." She just started to explain. "We struck by lightning?" gasped Barton. Mentally he started to jump up, but physically nothing moved. "My God, I'm paralyzed!" he screamed. "Oh, no, really, I don't think so," crooned little Eve Edgarton. With the faintest possible tinge of reluctance she put down her papers, picked up the lantern, and, crawling over to where Barton lay, sat down cross-legged again on the ground beside him and began with mechanically alternate fist and palm to rub-a-dub-dub and thump, thump, thump and stroke, stroke, stroke across his utterly helpless body. "Oh, of course you've had an awfully close call," she drummed resonantly upon his apathetic chest. "But I've seen 3 lightning people a lot worse off than you," she kneaded reassuringly into his insensate neck muscles. "And they came out of it all right after a few days." She slapped mercilessly into his faintly conscious sides. Very slowly, very sluggishly, as his circulation quickened again, a horrid suspicion began to stir in Barton's mind, but it took him a long time to voice a suspicion in anything as loud and public as words. "Miss Edgarton," he plunged at last quite precipitately. "Miss Edgarton, do I seem to have any shirt on?" "No, you don't seem to exactly, Mr. Barton," conceded little Eve Edgarton. "And your skin—" From head to foot Barton's whole body strained and twisted in a futile effort to raise himself to at least one elbow. "Why, I'm stripped to my waist!" he stammered in real horror. "Why, yes, of course," drawled little Eve Edgarton. "And your skin—" Imperturbably as she spoke she pushed him down flat on the ground again and began, with her hands edged vertically like 2 slim boards, to slash little blissful gashes of consciousness and pain into his frigid right arm. "You see, I had to take both your shirts," she explained, "and what was left of your coat, and all of my coat, to make a soft, strong rope to tie round or under your arms so the horse could drag you." "Did the roan drag me way up here?" groaned Barton a bit hazily. With the faintest possible gasp of surprise little Eve Edgarton stopped slashing his arm and picked up the lantern, flashed it disconcertingly across his blinking eyes and naked shoulders. "The roans are in heaven," she said quite simply. "It was Mother's horse that dragged you up here." As casually as if he had been a big doll she reached out one slim brown finger and drew his underlip a little bit down from his teeth. "My, but you're still blue," she confided frankly. "I guess perhaps you'd better have a little more vodka." Again Barton struggled vainly to raise himself on one elbow. "Vodka?"